Thunderball is a mammoth fucking film, a film that attempts to up the ante in every aspect compared to its predecessor. Does it succeed? Well, yeah. But where Thunderball excels in being epic, it flounders in its, storytelling and pacing. It's all very disappointing, especially since the film boasts quite possibly the most well-known plot of any Bond film. But first and foremost, Thunderball suffers from Connery's fucking short shorts. For the love of crap, man, those have not aged well. Anyway, Thunderball starts out with a great pre-title sequence with a hell of a fist fight and Bond escaping via rocket pack. After Tom Jones' pretty decent title song and Maurice Bender's most famous title sequence with the swimming chicks, we meet our villain Largo as he attends the brilliantly set up Spectre meeting. Blofeld goes around the table talking to operatives and shocking to death the one that betrayed him, and this is all great stuff. James Bond at this time is dicking around at Shrubland's health spa, recovering from his wounds from the opening, and he's basically just sexually harassing the staff. He happens to bump into a Spectre agent, Count Lippe, who is involved with Blofeld's nefarious plan. And after another moment where Bond forces himself on a nurse, Count Lippe tries to kill Bond in the hilarious rack scene. Bond is strapped into the spine-stretching machine, and the Count turns the machine from helpful to kill. And then seriously, people of the 60s, what with the racism and the as of yet mankind hasn't gone to the moon-ness, you guys did some stupid shit. Is this machine real? Do people really need their spine jarred back and forth like this? What possible reason would a machine like this ever need to motor back and forth so fucking fast? I know it's probably because it's a mechanical device before devices were forced to be safe for everyone, but it's still a silly scene that lacks any of the fear or tension it tries to put into it. I prefer to think that the machine is a sort of punishment for Bond's inability to control his sexual desires. I mean, it totally looks like the machine is forcing him to dry hump it. Bond is saved by the nurse, according to the clock on the wall, almost instantly, and he thanks her by blackmailing her into sex so she doesn't lose her job. So incorrigible. Bond eventually retaliates against Count Lippe like a 9-year-old, and Bond stumbles onto something related to the plot involving the mysterious bandage-faced Angelo. Bond also hooks up with the nurse again, this time indulging her furry fetish with this silly mink glove. So far, everything's pretty cool though, because Connery doesn't have his fucking short shorts. We get some of the plot though, at this point, through the introduction of NATO officer Duval, whom is spending time with busty redhead Fiona Volpe. Duval goes to leave, and oh my god, there are two of him. Count Lippe shows up, and we learn that the double of Duval is actually Angelo, who's been altered physically to resemble Duval, who is scheduled to tag along on a routine flight that has 2 nuclear warheads aboard. Bond figures out something is up when he sees people deliver Duval's body dressed as Angelo's back to Shrublands. Angelo steals the aircraft and stealthily flies it off the coast of Nassau, where Largo is waiting to take hold of the nukes. The scene where Angelo lands the Vulcan in the water is awesome because it's so different. Angelo is promptly killed for having asked for more money earlier in the film. We see Largo's kick-ass yacht, the Disco Volante, and the first few hints of underwater action that is to come. I like that the nuclear weapons say on them, "handle like eggs." Bond leaves Shrublands, and Count Lippe tries to kill Bond on the road. Blofeld says Lippe failed by mucking things up with Bond, so Fiona kills Count Lippe with her rocket-shooting motorcycle, which is really cool. But Bond just sort of keeps on trucking along while she blows him up, which is really bizarre. The person who's shooting at him, his car suddenly explodes, and Bond just goes to the office, not really noticing the car. So British intelligence is scrambling to figure out where the jet went, and Blofeld delivers a tape in which he outlines how he is ransoming the world for 100 million pounds sterling. See, that's an iconic Bond plot. Well, British and American intelligence are on the case and need to figure out where Spectre might be hiding those nuclear weapons. They set up a plan to scour the range of the Vulcan aircraft, and Bond is supposed to be sent to Canada, but he gets himself sent to Nassau because he recognized Duval in a picture where Duval was with his hot sister. I bet those poor souls in Nova Scotia are just bored as hell. Well, the plot is a marvelous setup, and the clock is ticking, which makes it really fucking hard to watch Bond so casually go about his goddamn day. Thunderball is frustratingly long-winded. We know where the bad guy is, we know his plan, everything, and we have to watch Bond slowly figure it out piece by piece. we're introduced to Domino, the main Bond girl and Largo's trapped mistress. She's absolutely gorgeous, but a rather flat, uninteresting character. Certainly Bond's least interesting love interest so far. Also, Bond just sort of runs into her as she's diving for starfish or something, skipping over how Bond flew to Nassau, met up with his assistant here, Paula, staked out Domino, figured out the best place to meet her, and eventually formulated a plan to run into her. That's the sort of thing the movie needed to do more often, speed shit up. In Nassau, Bond plays baccarat with Largo, where he uses his real name and constantly tries to force the word Spectre into conversation to fuck with Largo, which is goofy, and I know Bond pretty much always uses his real name, but here it seems especially stupid because Largo might move the nukes if he thinks Bond is onto it. Bond goes to his hotel room, and there's an inventive scene where Bond listens to a recording he's placed in the room to figure out where a would-be assassin is. Then Bond answers the door, and Felix Leiter is there, and Bond promptly punches Leiter to prevent him from saying 007. Then Bond goes to the bathroom where the dude is hiding, turns the water on, disarms the man, and Leiter shows up in the bathroom and says, "Fine way to greet the CIA," and Bond says, "Sorry, you were about to say 007. Bond says this right over the body of the man he just disarmed, who is not unconscious. He then lets the man leave to report back to Largo. Why the fuck did he punch Leiter then? I guess the guy was supposed to be knocked out for like 4 seconds when Bond said 007. The lackey escapes and reports back to Largo, who hilariously slaps him with a towel, but the towel makes like a whip noise. Then he feeds the dude to sharks, which totally fucking rocks. Largo's an okay villain, but he ends up being Bond's weakest thus far in the series. Bond goes off to the Bahamas intelligence station, where we get a noticeable boom mic and a memorable moment with Q, who gives Bond some awesome gadgets for this film. Short-length breather, watch Geiger counter, miniature flare gun, infrared underwater camera, and a swallowable homing device. All of this is badass. Bond goes out and takes some pictures of the underside of the Disco Volante, and he gets some pictures of the underwater hatch, which the audience already knows about. Bond and Leiter figure the Vulcan plane must be in the water because the Disco Volante has an underwater hatch. We know. Largo and Fiona discuss why they can't kill Bond, which is pretty decent reasoning. If they kill him, British intelligence will know something's up. Bond shows up for lunch at Largo's estate, and they have that really great skeet shooting scene. The film thus far has kind of sputtered on its plotting, and it takes a terribly awkward turn when Bond is invited by Largo to take Domino to this big Mardi Gras type party. Bond takes Domino, but while he's out, his assistant Paula is abducted by Fiona. Leiter shows up to tell Bond Paula is missing, and Bond, in a rather wildly overdubbed scene, tells Leiter to look after Domino, who I don't think he's ever met, while Bond goes to Largo's home to look for Paula. Bond leaves, breaks into Largo's estate, only to be too late to save Paula because she took some cyanide pill, and Bond tries to leave and ends up fighting his way out, resulting in him being locked in a shark tank before he escapes and heads back to his hotel, where he runs into Fiona, who is unexpectedly bathing in Paula's room. This is a great scene here where Fiona asks for clothes and Bond gives her her shoes. And Fiona is really the best thing about this movie and the most outright sexy character thus far in a Bond film. She's crafty and treacherous, and that makes her fun to watch. Bond and her, of course, have premarital relations, and Bond is eventually captured by Fiona. Fiona prods Bond wonderfully by mentioning that he planned to sleep with her and have her see the light and change her ways, which Pussy Galore did in Goldfinger, and that she is immune to his charms. This is all great stuff. The sharks are cool, everything about all this. It's just, it should not have taken place while Felix is apparently standing awkwardly with Domino while they wait hours for Bond to return. I don't really get why they even had Bond take Domino to this party. Bond escapes from Fiona, of course, in a shambled-together foot race in which Bond is shot in the ankle. His ankle wound distractingly changes legs from moment to moment, right to left, then back again, before eventually settling on his left leg. Fiona catches up with Bond and dies when shot by her own henchmen. Bond eventually finds the downed plane, and he has to inspect it to see if the warheads are aboard. They aren't, and we know that. This scene allows Bond to see the abandoned body of Angelo as Duval, and Bond figures he can turn Domino against Largo by letting her know her brother's dead. He does, and Domino emotes about the loss of her brother, and these obviously inserted shots of her in the studio with rear projection, and Bond gives Domino his camera, which he tells her is a Geiger counter, though earlier his watch was a Geiger counter, and the camera was an infrared underwater camera. Domino voices over some info about Largo's forbidden area near a canal, and Bond investigates in, dear lord, nothing but his fucking short shorts. Bond eventually rather ballsily beats up a guy and takes his place on Largo's team, finding the nukes, and they are loaded on the Disco Volante for a target of Miami. Finally, after all this plodding along, Largo's men are thwarted in an epic underwater battle in the finale. This scene is absolutely stunning, and it's an amazing fucking feat. There are harpoons being shot, knife fights, sharks, a fucking sunken ship, grenades, and it's the most impressive underwater anything ever committed to fucking film. It's followed up with a decent fist fight aboard the Disco Volante that's intercut with some hilariously bad footage of the Disco Volante speeding along that's obviously been sped up. I applaud the effort, but this scene is pretty following the underwater battle. After this, the film abruptly ends in a pretty cool moment. Alright, I've rambled on about this movie for fucking ever. Thunderball has all the right, best elements of a Bond film, they just seem to have been assembled poorly. Well, actually it seems that the screenplay had the right stuff, something was somewhat off when they shot it on location in the Bahamas, and the footage was salvaged the best it could be afterwards. Thunderball seems cobbled together as a rough cut, like the crunch of getting the film out by Christmas didn't allow another pass at editing the film down. Pacing is the biggest issue, as I've complained. We know all the details of the plot before Bond, and it's not terribly interesting to watch him figure it out. The film also lacks action, with only a few brief moments between the pre-title and the balls out finale. The plot is great, it's just the movie didn't have much to do after the plot was introduced. Thunderball isn't a complete misfire, but it's certainly off the mark. It hardly mattered, though, at the time. Thunderball was the film that made Bond a fucking phenomenon. It was a massive success, and when it's adjusted for inflation, it's still Bond's most successful adventure and one of the most successful films of all time. But in retrospect, when all things are considered, it falls somewhere in the middle of the entire Bond canon.